If God has placed somebody on your heart to forgive them. If God has placed somebody on your heart to reach out, do it, because you just don't know what's attached to it. You don't know how it's going to manifest later. You don't know who it'll help later. So do it. I'm just so grateful, man. What's up, y'all? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Let It Be the Podcast. I'm your host, Fergie, and if this is your very first time, I just want to say welcome to Let It Be. Thank you so much for tuning in. I pray that whatever it was that led you here, that it spoke to you, and I hope that you take a deeper dive, because we got some great episodes, great conversations that we've had thus far. If you are not new here and you've been supporting me along the way, I just want to say thank you so much for your love and your encouragement and your support. I see it, and it has definitely kept me encouraged, and it's kept me going on days when I didn't think that I could. And as you can see, if you've been tuned in to Let It Be, I'm in a brand new space, and I want to talk more about that. First of all, I got to shout out Success Space. Success Space is a co-working space located in Flower Mound, Texas. Now, I know a lot of y'all are probably like, where the heck is Flower Mound? Because I was the same way. Flower Mound is a suburb located north of Dallas, but we everywhere, okay? And because I'm here based off of somebody speaking my names in rooms that I wasn't in, and so I had to share this because it is an ideal space. I would say, if you are an entrepreneur, if you're working on a business, if you work from home even, sometimes it's hard to really be productive at home in isolation because you get distracted. I know for me, it was really hard for me to stay focused because I would get distracted, watch TV, or be in the kitchen eating snacks and all of the things, And so what I appreciate about Success Space is they also have a coffee lounge. If I'm hungry, if I need something and I want to buy it, I can go over there and buy it. But it's just a great place for networking. You never know who you'll rub elbows with. And it's been a blessing to me. So if you are interested and you want to learn more about it, look at the link that I have listed below. And if you want to figure out how you can learn more or be a part of Success Space, you can find me on LinkedIn. Actually, I'm a good person to talk to, but you got to reach out to me through LinkedIn or just let me know and I'll find a way to connect with you. But yeah, this is my first solo episode of 2025, and it has been, oh my God. If you have survived thus far, because 2025 came in swinging, okay? It has been, first of all, 2024, I feel like a lot of people was fighting for their lives. And then 2025 was like, okay, my turn. And it's been jumping us. And so if you have hung on this far, God got something for you. That's why you're still here. But nonetheless, I just want to say that me being here is a result of somebody speaking my name in rooms that I wasn't in. But before I can really get into that, I got to take y'all back, especially if you're new here and you don't know. My name is Bree. I was a radio personality, and now I am a podcaster, okay? But that journey wasn't an easy surrender, I would say, because I didn't realize how much I was still looking and seeking for external validation for the thing that I know that God has gifted me inside. And so I tried to find that validation through work, through jobs that I had, or through, serving and all the things. But I realized that I didn't need to work to be approved. God already approved me. That's why he gifted me what he's assigned me with, and I just had to steward that well. And speaking of stewardship, Let It Be the Podcast, I started this in 2022, I think, but I took a break from it. And 2023 is when I picked it back up. And in all of last year, God gave me my word of the year was stewardship. And when he told me stewardship, I'm thinking oh, this means he about to give me a boatload of money and he just want me to make sure that I'm handling it well. No, very wrong. Very loud and wrong. That wasn't the case. God was like, no, I need you to steward well what's in front of you. The relationships that you have, steward those well. The assignment that I give you, you steward those well. And that season, it's still a season, stewardship. But what God was showing me just in that season was that it revealed to me my lack of trust in him. And so I'm going to get more into that and all the things. But I want to talk about how my pride was blocking me being able to steward with a good heart what God had gave me. And what I mean when I say that is like I knew that God had like called me into ministry in like 2019 or so, but I never felt worthy of that, and I never felt like somebody like me could do it. To be honest, I was felt very unworthy, and so I tried to do a little bit here and a little bit here, but I was still trying to have my baseline be like, that's cool and all, but like I don't want to be no preacher, I don't want to be all these things, and so I couldn't really steward with a full heart, like and full belief what God gave me, because I was so focused on like, just in case this don't work out, at least I got my backup plan. And God really had to reveal to me last year, like, I am the backup plan. And whether that is by surrender or by force, for me, it kind of was almost like given by force. But that is a lesson that I had to learn. So I'm sharing this with you for the person who's on the other side of this, who might not really understand the transition that they're in. They might not understand what it is that God has called them to do in the season that they're in. Like those two things probably don't go together in their mind. And so I want to share my story because I want you to know that God doesn't waste anything, that everything always works together if you don't resist it. I mean, and even when you do resist it, you'll just tire yourself out, but he'll still get the glory because he's still going to work things together. Yeah. And so last year, my word of the year was stewardship. And what God showed me is that, like, I've given you your assignment, which is your podcast. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So, like, I had a job at the beginning of last year when I started. And I was, doing my podcast. I was being consistent. I didn't quit this time. And I prided myself because when I first started, life got ghetto. I quit. I didn't want to do it no more. And so because I didn't do that, I felt like, well, God, like I'm doing the thing that you asked me to, but I wasn't finding that fulfillment in like my job. But I also wasn't necessarily like me going all into the podcast didn't take off like I thought it would. So I was just kind of like, God, you told me to steward this, but it was like, okay, I can do this and this. And God was like, no, I just want you to do this. Right. And so I knew that like the job that I was in was a seasonal thing. For me, it was seasonal. For them, probably not in the beginning. But for me, I knew it was always going to be a seasonal thing. But what I didn't understand at that time was like God brought me to that job. It wasn't about the company. It was about the people that I was connecting to, which honestly is what led me to being in this room right now. It was from that season of my life. And I remember being like, okay, God, I'm doing a podcast and I'm working at this job and I don't necessarily want to work, but I ain't got the sponsorships. It's not like my podcast is bringing me millions of dollars. And because to be honest, when you see people online, when you see people doing certain things, it's like, well, I know they got to be doing all these things. They live in, they got all this money and sponsorships and all those things. So you start to compare yourself, but you don't really know. Like it's a journey, it's a process to get into that moment. And I couldn't fully like embrace it all the way because I was like, God, like you got to show me that this is like, I can trust this to really pour everything into it. So not that I wasn't doing the thing tangibly, but it was just a belief about it in my heart and my mind. Like that I believed that God like could sustain me through my obedience to him. That was my thought process in the beginning. And when I started to feel like, okay, God, I know a season is coming, it's going to shift me. I didn't think that season would like literally kick me out. It kicked me out of my comfort zone. And what you witnessed last year, like in 2024 and like the previous seasons, like what you witnessed is somebody uncertain, doubtful, but still obedient. And was it easy? No. Did I do it? Did I execute well? No. But this last year was a constant like checking of my heart. Like I had to like go through something and then God will reveal like, hey, I need you to deal with that. Hey, I need you to steward that well. But I was so focused on how can I fully embrace this thing that you've given me? Because this don't make sense. My flow ain't coming from here right now. And I also hate this place that I'm in right now. So I was frustrated a lot, but I was still obedient. But I didn't realize that it was pride that was in my heart too. Like I feel like because I didn't quit this time, then God, you owe me something. Like I thought that this was going to sustain me well, like, and you haven't done that. And so a lot of times I would be like dragging, like, oh, I don't feel like doing this. How am I going to get to the end of this? Blah, blah, blah. Still doing it. And that's not necessarily something that I portrayed all the time, but it was always a surrender, and I think that I prided myself on, at least I did what you said. At least I didn't quit. God, you owe me something. But surprise, he don't owe you anything. Like, you owe him your obedience. If he's trusted you with something, regardless of if what the return is or what you feel like it should be or what you feel like you're deserving of, like, God doesn't owe you anything. And I didn't even realize that that was something that was starting to like bubble up in my heart, right? And so once he released me, and it caught me by surprise, rather, like, I'll say. And I didn't, like, again, I'm gonna be honest, this is a very transparent conversation, because I want you to be able to recognize and identify this in your own heart and in your life, so that you don't have to fight the whole time God is trying to prepare you for something else, and that's what I felt like I was doing. Because part of me was like, God, like, I'm doing this thing that you told me to do because you told me to steward this well. But then I'm dealing with these things at this job here. And then, like, you release me from the job. And I ain't gonna lie, like, I was angry last year. I was angry because of the way I was handled at my last company. I was angry because I was disrespected. And I wanted to give an eye for eye. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wanted to, like, oh, you thought you could play with me? Well, let me give you back the same energy you give me. But God always arrested me. Like, that's not what I told you to do. Yeah, I understand what they did, but that's not what I told you to do. So I had to humble myself a lot. But I'm gonna be honest, I didn't realize the callous that it had created, like, that began to form on my heart. And the way that God revealed that to me, oh my God, like, I don't want nobody else to have to go through what I just went through, or not be able to realize that, like, I didn't. And so that's why I'm sharing this with you. Because first of all, before we get too deep into it, because pride shows up in so many different ways. And so before I share my story, I want to share with you a couple of ways that we might, that pride is manifested into our lives. I wrote these down. We can find pride in, like, achievements and success, basically thinking that our accomplishments are solely due to our hard work, and we're looking down on others who've made it. We can have spiritual pride, basically feeling superior because of our faith or our Bible knowledge or our good works, and we can be judging others very harshly. Pride also manifests through resistance of correction. We reject advice. We become really defensive, and we refuse to admit our mistakes. Pride can also be manifested in our lives by struggling to apologize and to forgive others, justifying your wrongs, or refusing to say I'm sorry, or holding grudges. Pride can also be manifested through seeking recognition and praise, and you see a lot of that, like, especially on social media. Overestimating your abilities, believing that you don't need help. Oh my God! Like, as I'm reading this off, it's kind of like pew, 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 in my heart. And also taking offense easily. You feel personally attacked when you're criticized, and being easily offended just because people have different opinions than you. And so those are ways that pride can, like, manifest in your heart, in your lives daily. But I'm gonna talk about some of these areas that it was beginning to manifest in my life that I didn't realize. And first things first, I must talk about struggling to forgive. And so, like, the job that I was at before, like, I was disrespected by this man, by this company. And in my mind, I was like, you know what? Pride, right? I was like, I'm going to make it with what in my heart, rather. Like, what God told me to do, I know that I'm going to take off. I know that. And when I say take off, meaning, like, I don't need you. I'm going to prove to you that, like, I was going to be good without you. So I'm going to meet other people. I'm going to do all these things. And, like, I want you to know that I never needed you in the first place. And pride is like, it come in very quietly, right? Because I started to have those thoughts like, oh, okay, you disrespecting me. Because I basically felt like they could have spit in my face and it would have been the same type form of disrespect, right? And it wasn't until I went to lunch with a mentor, and she basically was like, hey, you're angry. You need to forgive them. And I was offended, like, girl, I am not mad. Like, I don't need them. It was just a conversation that we had, It wasn't like I wasn't nasty, but I was like, no, I don't think it's that I'm unforgiving. Like, it is what it is. I knew I was going to leave, blah, blah, blah. But she planted that seed in me, and I just was like, I don't forgive. I'm not worried about them. I'm fine. Like, I'm doing this thing that God's told me to do. But on the other hand, I'm like, God, is this really what you told me to do? Because, like, it don't make sense for somebody who like is doing a thing and it's not necessarily covering them the way that they needed to, because I got bills to pay. So it's like a part of me wanted to prove to myself that like, yeah, God is going to take care of me doing this thing. And I'm going to get endorsements and all these things. It's just like little thoughts that we have in our own mind and our heart, right? Like, I don't need them. I'm going to show them that I didn't need them anyway, because God called me to do this great thing anyway. And so I didn't really need you from the beginning. Those are just the way that pride manifested in my life and in my heart. It's not that I said those things out loud, but I didn't realize it until she called it out. So fast forward, God was beginning to deal with me, just areas in my heart. He also told me to focus on daily bread. And daily bread meaning like every need that I have, he'll provide it. But pride was like, I don't trust you. I'm going to like, low key, God, like he didn't tell me to work last season. He told me to steward well what he gave me. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, every now and then, like I'm gonna throw out a job application because I don't really know. I don't really trust how long this is gonna last, you know? And then because especially like when you start to share, if you share things with certain people and they'll put their doubt on you. So it was starting to make me be like, well, maybe God didn't tell me to do this. Maybe I am supposed to be working. Just get over it, find another job. And so I struggled a lot with obedience because I know that God told me to like steward this thing that he's given me and to focus on that and he will provide for me. And he did that in ways that I couldn't imagine. Like, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, but God, how long is this gonna last? It's not gonna always happen like that. And God was just revealing to me, like, you don't trust me. And it's rooted in pride because you think that your livelihood is solely dependent upon you and not me. And like again, like a lot of the lessons that I learned them in real time, and some of them are, you know, I've talked about them on previous episodes, but I'm looking back on it now, it's like, wow, God, like I really did it. And because I did it, sometimes I feel like God will strip you of everything, whatever it is that's in the way of him getting to your heart. If it takes you to be stripped completely of it, that's what's going to happen. And that's what happened to me at the end of last year. Like I was like stripped down to like, my God, I cannot believe my life feels like this. And I felt like it was like a whirlwind, like I was never going to get out of it. And I was angry. I began to get angry with God. Like I trusted you to the very end and you sent these people to tell me certain things that was going to happen. And like, God, like I've stewarded well, I've done everything with a sincere heart that you have told me to do. And it just feels like you are silent. But you know what God also told me to do? While I was in those seasons of still being obedient, still trusting him, he was dealing with the matters of my heart. He told me, he placed it in my heart, like, I cannot bless you. I cannot bless you to the level that I want to bless you until you deal with that in your heart. And I need you to, but he placed like reconciliation in my heart. And I didn't know if I was really going to share this because like, I try to protect like my family and people in my life personally. So I'm not going to necessarily share all these names and things, but God placed it in my heart that I needed to reconcile with a family member. And my mind was immediately no. I'm like, God, I'll miss out on that part of the blessing. First of all, if you're not sure yet, I struggle with pride. I've always struggled with pride. I don't want nobody to help me. I felt like I'm good by myself, even if I got to struggle alone. Like that's something I've always struggled with, pride. And so when God placed it in my heart, like, okay, it's time to reconcile. I was like, no, like I will miss out on that part of the blessing, I guess, because I've already put myself out there. I've already apologized. I've already tried to make things right. I'm not begging nobody. I don't care who it is. I don't care. And so God was like, okay. It kind of just, I remember when he dropped it in my spirit, it was just like, oh, okay. And then God was beginning to really like do like stripping areas of my heart down to like, okay, so he revealed to me, like, you still angry about this company and the way that these people disrespected you. Okay. And then another area that he was showing me is that like me not trusting him to be my provider. And like, if you read like in Exodus, when they were on this journey, God was providing them daily bread, like manna. God was doing the same thing for me. And I was frustrated because like my reserve was starting to run low. And then it was like, oh my God. And then I'm gonna be honest, I was like, God, I trusted you and I thought that you was gonna like at least be covering like certain things, or like I would have a cushion. God was like, girl, I'm your cushion, because like every time I was worried about anything, if anything was going to get paid, whatever was going to happen. He always provided it, but it never came in the forms of the way that I thought. And so sidebar, my godmom kept telling me, like, I'm going to send you this. I'm going to bless you. I'm going to help you. And I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't need anything. Girl, like, you need help. Like, why are you rejecting help? But I didn't want nobody to know. And so she kept telling me, like, God blesses us through other people. And you're gonna block your blessing and somebody else's blessing by not feeling like they can help you. So she had kept telling me these things, like, I want to bless you, stop rejecting me to help you. Like, if I can bless you, then let me bless you. And so all those things was like little by little was like in my heart. God had revealed 3 things in my life, like in my heart, that I needed to address. And for me, being prideful and trying to think things like, okay, God, like, I've been fine, up until this point without, like, I was not honest, rather, like, I don't really need to forgive them. Like, I let that go. I don't care about that job no more, whatever. Or I've already tried to reconcile and it didn't work out. So I'm fine. I'm making peace without ever being cool with that person again. Or like, God, like, I got a reserve. So like, if it all comes down to it, at least I'll work. I know how to hustle and make money. So God was like, those are the main 3 areas that God was really dealing with in my heart last year. And when he was starting to reveal to me those things, I didn't know that my resistance would cause him to strip everything away from me, little by little by little. And so the first part was, I'm trying to think, this was, in like August, my money was a little funny, okay? And I'm like, God, it was for the first time, I felt like I don't have enough to take care of myself. I need help. And God told me, so ask for help. And I couldn't do it. Because I remember a time when I first moved to Dallas, I was so prideful. I would quite literally rather starve than ask for help. There were days that I did not eat because I didn't want nobody to think I needed them. I didn't want to ask for help. And God reminded me of that when I was in a season in August, when it was like, girl, your little reserve is run out. Okay. So like, you need help. You need to ask for help. And I just couldn't bring it to myself to do that. And so my godmom had kept, like, one day she had just told me, like, yeah, I want to bless you, blah, blah, blah. And I was telling her, like, well, I need help with my rent. And she was like, well, you need to call and ask my pops, basically. She was like, call and ask your dad. And I was like, no, I don't want to. And it killed me. When I was like, well, what else you gonna do, girl? Like, I got a little bit, but I ain't got all of it. So what you gonna do while you're waiting? And I had to call him. And you know what my daddy said? He was like, you're my daughter. Like, if I knew that you needed something and I could help you, why wouldn't I help you? All you have to do was just like ask me. And God was just showing, because I think that in my mind, I was like, I've looked at God like, you look at, a lot of us, we look at God like we look at our earthly father. And for me, that was an area that I was struggling with. Like, well, God, I don't want you to think that, like, you give me the ability to to work and all this. So why do I gotta go and ask for help? But it's like, because that's the way he blesses people. And so you want to be so prideful and miss your rent because you don't want to ask nobody for help that's willing to help you. And like, when I first did that, like, I think the first, like, yes, I need help, it stung me a little bit. But then it was a relief when my daddy was like, girl, no problem. Here, like, I'll always help you because you're my daughter. And that was God speaking to me. Like, you got to allow people, just like you evolve. You don't think God is working on other people? If there's a resource or somebody that can help you, you think they're going to look at you funny because you need help? Everybody might need help at some point. And when God began to do that, then I could tell so many layers were starting to come down, because that wall of trying to portray like, oh, I got it all together, oh, I don't need help, was detrimental to my spirit. It was detrimental to just my livelihood, right? And so when I had to like ask my dad for help, he was like, girl, I got you, no worries, And then my godmom kept telling me, like, see, like, God blesses us, but sometimes the help is going to come from you opening your mouth. You have not because you ask not, right? And so that happened in August, and I'm like, okay, cool. And then I'm still being obedient, but I remember I went to lunch again. This must have been November. I'm sorry. I'm trying to think back. So November, I had a couple of deaths in my family. But before I went home, God had placed it on my heart, like, it's time to reconcile. And like I got a chance to like I had a death on both sides of my family a week apart at that. And so like being able to be home and like enjoy my family, like and hang out with my dad's side of the family. I haven't been around all of us together in so long. And I hate that it was a funeral that brought us together. But that was great. But God was like, yeah, and that's not what I'm talking about. And what it was like I think I mentioned this before. It was my sibling, my brother. So like me and my brother had a falling out probably like 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. It was a long time. And the thing about offense and not communicating is this, it starts to grow. And then this anger starts to grow and it just morphs into something that it doesn't even have to be. Right. And so that was a long journey. And I had like, my heart was so calloused and I was so angry. And then especially like, because I tried and I felt like, oh, it's not received well. So I was like, I don't care. I will go, like, I will miss out on this blessing. I'm not asking nobody to, who do you think? I'm not begging nobody. I don't care who it is, right? And God was like, I cannot bless you until you deal with this area in your heart, right? And so I go home. I had to go home for another funeral, and me and my brother ended up, this was the most interaction that we had ever had. But at the funeral, we ended up sitting next to each other. So we were having these little, like, oh, you need to get this. Oh, we were watching my nephew. And so like, hey, you want me to get him? Blah, 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 whatever. It was starting to have like small conversation. And then when we got to the gravesite, God was like, now is the time. Like, and like the thing here, and I want to put this in here. Like, if God has placed something on your heart, listen to him, okay? Because he literally made you, he knows. Whether it's like, hey, put yourself out there again. Forgive this person. Go talk to them. Go do this. You just don't know what's connected to it, right? And so we were at the gravesite and God had placed it on my heart. Like, go take pictures like you and your mama and your brothers. Like, y'all haven't taken a picture together in a long time. So go get pictures. And so we go up there. We take pictures. And God was just on my heart. Like, it's time to be vulnerable. And well, when I tell you like that resistance and me being so like prideful, I didn't want nobody to see, like, I'm like a jelly bean. Like, I didn't want nobody to see what was inside my heart. And so basically we took pictures, and I remember feeling like when God was speaking to me, like, say something to your brother, say something to him. And so I was just like, hey, bro, like, I don't know what reconciliation looks like for us, but I just don't want us to be in a space where we can't be cool and cordial, because me and my brother used to be so close. And that's why I think I was so hurt for all of this time, how miscommunication led to years of not communicating with each other. And so that's me saying that to him led to a conversation, led to me breaking down, crying, and like my flesh was angry that I like let my guard down, but my soul felt refreshed. And I just felt like I can get emotional thinking about it. Like, being able to just communicate, like, oh, I thought it was this. Oh, I thought it was this. Oh, I thought that's what you meant. Like, bro, like, so, like, conversation can really, right communication can avoid so many things, so many unnecessary issues. And so, just very high level, saying all that to say, I reconcile with my brother, somebody who I hadn't talked to in years. Hugged them, told them I loved them. Like that moment, I will never forget that moment. And since that moment of vulnerability, like, we've hung out, I've been to his house, like, and I'm only sharing this because like we'll make up something in our mind about a person and we'll hold them to that. Like, you'll never change. You'll always be this, but you don't know it. I don't know the work that God has been doing on this man's heart all of these years. And he don't know the work that God has been doing on my heart. And so just the way that I've been able to be reconciled has freed me, man. Like, oh my God, like that feeling of just, it's a freedom of like not holding that anger and not holding that offense. And now my family is able to like get together without it being awkward. You know what I'm saying? Like, instead of me being over here prideful and unbothered, and then everybody else over here being like, oh, this is awkward. Y'all need to, you know what I'm saying? Like, but pride, that's something that I've always struggled with, pride. And so, man, like, I'm so grateful that, first of all, that I was able to obey God even though I was uncomfortable. I did not feel comfortable doing it, but I got my brother back, bro. And that feeling, like, I'm getting to know him, man, it just feels like I can't explain like what this is, because I literally was like willing to go to my grave never talking to this person again. And I was fake okay with it. Like, oh well, it's a little bit of offense, but I don't care. And God was like, I can't bless you until you handle that. Deal with it. Was it easy? No. But was it worth it? Absolutely. Absolutely. So if it is somebody on your heart, and I didn't really necessarily plan to tell all of that, but like if it's somebody on your heart that God is like, hey, I need you to make amends with this person. If y'all might not be what y'all were, but y'all could be better. Y'all could be cordial. I don't know. But like, don't carry that offense in your heart, because offense is like a cancer and it will manifest into so many other areas in your life. And you don't want it to block, you don't know how God want to use that later, how God want to free somebody later. Like my brother, I don't know if he's a believer or not, but like now he's tuned into my podcast. Like we've been able to just interact and hang out with each other, and I love him so much, and I'm just so grateful because man, I'm telling y'all, if God has placed somebody on your heart to forgive them. If God has placed somebody on your heart to reach out, do it, because you just don't know what's attached to it. You don't know how it's going to manifest later. You don't know who it'll help later. So do it. I'm just so grateful, man. I'm just so grateful for that. Because in my mind, I could never see it again. I never thought we would ever be cool again. And so that was another area where God was like tearing down those walls of like pride, ego, all in my heart. And I guess the last portion was just that unforgiveness piece. So again, speaking my name in roles that I wasn't in. A mentor took me to breakfast and we were having conversation, and she asked me like, hey, did you ever check out that podcast studio that I was telling you about? She basically told them like, hey, like I know somebody who has a great podcast. And they were like, yeah, we want her to come shoot her podcast in our studio. But I was so in my mind, I'm like, I don't want to be affiliated with nobody that I used to be affiliated with. Because some of these, like, working in smaller towns, smaller cities, it's like you see a lot of the same people. And I'm like, I don't want to run into nobody who, like, you tried to hurt me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't want to see you. I'm just going to block you out of my mind, out of my life, whatever. And so when she told me, I just was like, nah, I really wasn't interested, really. But the root of it was that unforgiveness in my heart. And so she just was like, why, like, you're angry. You need to let this go, you know? And so, like, that conversation kind of, like, I ain't gonna lie, it kind of offended me a little bit, because I just was like, I don't need to, like, I'm not unbothered, you know, but you are bothered, girl. Like, you're bothered. Like, you don't want to work with other people that you used to work with, or that might work with these other people because of what? Because you're bothered, sis. Like, let it go. And so when she said that, it just was really disrupting to me, right? And so this is like the end of 2023. I'm like, God, like, I've done all these things. I've did these podcasts. And I was like, I went home. So I was praying like, God, I've done all these things, but I feel empty inside. And I was like, I need to go home. So I literally packed up a bag and I went to Kansas City. And I didn't have a return date in my mind. I just was like, I don't care. I'm just going to go. I'll come back whenever I come back, whatever. But I was so stressed out because I'm like, I am at the end of myself completely in every aspect. Spiritually, I was low, mentally, financially. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do for January. I literally have no idea. And God, like, was telling me, you want to go home and be present there. And so when I went home for the holidays, normally I'll be there and I'll be running all around trying to see everybody, but I didn't have the energy to do that this time. This time I'm like, I can only be present. And so it wasn't necessarily easy all the time. I had to constantly remind myself, like, you wanted to be here with your family, just spend time and enjoy. And when I tell you, I got a chance to hang out with both of my brothers, all my nieces and nephews, and I enjoyed family time that I have not had in years. And it filled my cup up in a way that only that time could have. But God reminded me, like, you can't even fully be here because you in January. But I'm here. Like, I'm in January. You need to be here because this is what you asked me for. You wanted to spend time with your family. Be here and be present. And God was like, I got January, right? And so that was hard, but it was like, what are you going to do? You going to ruin your whole holiday time because you worried about the future that ain't even here yet? I had to be like, okay, God, like, I'm going to be here. And so I enjoyed my time home with my family. I got a chance to, like, really bond with everybody. And it filled my cup in ways that, like, I needed and I didn't even know I needed, right? And so January comes and I am like, God, what am I supposed to do? What do I do now? Because I haven't been working because I haven't had peace. Like, though, like, low key, like, I was applying for jobs like here and there, but I never had peace doing that. Because God, I knew that God just told me, like, continue with your podcast. Don't stop. I'm going to send you to people. We're going to connect with who you're supposed to connect with, right? And so I'm like, okay. But I was like, well, what do I do now that I don't, like, I've done the podcast. I'm not like, I need to survive. And God was providing for me through generosity. Like literally I would wake up and somebody would send me thousands of dollars, hundreds of dollars here and there. And so like, that is like literally how I was able to be sustained like in January. But God was telling me like, trust me, I got you, right? Trust me, I know what you need. And I'm going to provide for you daily bread. And sometimes that provision will come through you having to ask somebody. Sometimes it'll come through somebody, God placing you on somebody's heart and they just want to bless you. Literally, that is how I've been surviving. Like 2025 was like very hard, but I mean, like the beginning of 2025 was very hard because I was at the end of myself. But where I lacked, God was like, here, I got it. But like, I need you to trust me. And I didn't think that it would take me to be stripped down to like nothing before I fully like surrender to it, right? And so like when that began to happen, God was like, okay, now what's in your hands? And when I was praying like, God, what do I do next? He's like, what's in your hands? I'm like, I don't know what that means. You know, he's like, what are you good at, right? Like, what's in your hands? And so I remember I fell asleep and I had this dream. And in the dream, I basically had this idea about creating like a podcast for somebody else. And I'm like, can I actually do that? Like, I'm still trying to figure out my podcast for myself. I don't want to be responsible for like nobody else's. You know, I'm not really interested in producing other podcasts. But God was like, okay, what's in your hand? What can you do? And so it reminded me of the conversation that I had with my mentor previously. And she had told me about Success Space, which is where I am right now, right? She had told me about them. And so then I was like, you know what? Let me call. Because I came up to visit them. And I had a conversation with the CEO, or with and then I'm like, okay, with the owner. And so she told me about them. I had this conversation with the owner. And then I was like, nah, I don't really know. Because my podcast, I just saw it like, I be at my house, or it's like comfortable couch conversation. God was like, you don't want to grow? You just want it to stay like this? Is what you're comfortable with? You want it to stay with the people that you're comfortable with? Or do you want my glory to be revealed through multiple people, through multiple channels, right? And so in this dream, God was like, what's in your hand? And so I'm like, wow, I got this idea to create this podcast. So I call him up and I'm like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but I met you last month and I was talking to you, but I have an idea about your podcast. Like, I know you was talking to me about my podcast, but I have an idea for a podcast for you. And so we literally set up a meeting. And in that meeting, I like came prepared with like a presentation, all these ideas. And she just wanted to chat with me, right? And so she asked me what I had been up to. I'm telling her about my podcast. I tell her about this idea that I got for for a podcast here. And then she's like, so what's next for you? Like, are you looking for work? Are you working? What you been up to lately? What's new? You know, what you want to do? And then she tells me like, well, I have a need basically, like outside of even the podcast. She's like, she's like, it's not necessarily like a traditional role, but I really need help with like business development and marketing. I mean, and like, networking and all those things. And that's what I used to do in my previous job. And so, I'm like, oh, okay. So she's telling me these ideas, but when I look at my presentation, literally everything that she's saying is what I wrote down in my presentation. And so she's saying this, I'm like, oh, you mean like this? Or, oh, you mean like this? And the idea came to me because God was like, what's in your hand? And then he gave me a dream and a download and I wrote it all down, right? And so then the night before I had that meeting, God was like, write a job description. And I'm like, but I didn't apply for a job. They're not even hiring, And he told me to write this job description. So I literally wrote out this job description. And I just kind of took that away. But as she was talking about her need, I'm showing her what was in my presentation. And she's like, exactly that, exactly that. So she was like, so if this was a job, like, what would it look like for you? What would you want this to look like? I literally gave her the job description. And she's like, oh my God, like exactly that. She was like, I don't know. I just kind of feel like this is exactly like what I'm looking for, but I don't know what that looked like. She was like, I didn't know if somebody would be interested in a role like this because it's not even created, but let me pray about it. We're going to talk, we can follow up and talk about this later. But she's like, I feel like that idea was for you. Like the idea of like the role that I needed was for you. And fast forward, here I am, right? So me being obedient, me surrendering those areas of pride in my heart, what God was trying to show me, what he was trying to get out of my heart. If I would have been stubborn, I would have missed out on this next phase of my life. I would have missed out on the opportunity to be able to grow past my own limited thinking of what I thought God would do or what I thought I was worthy of, because now, like, being in this opportunity, like having an opportunity to work with a business that's bigger than myself, being able to help create a podcast that has nothing to do with me, but like using the gift that God has given me to help other people. And then it also creating an opportunity for me not to just grow as a professional, but I know like the next phases of what I'm going to be doing, like what God is leading me to, is to start speaking more, start connecting with people more. And God was like, so do you only want to connect with people that look like you? You only want to connect with people that you know? Like, is that what it is? Is that the gospel is limited to that? You don't know who God want to bless through you, wherever he want to send you. But if you keep yourself, oh, I've only done it this way, or oh, I can't change, or oh, I don't know these type of people, or I don't have this, that, and the third. God's like, I will provide all your needs. And that's exactly what God has been doing for me, through me this whole time. I've still been able to be generous to others, but I've also still been able to receive from others because God had to really tear down my heart. When I tell you he stripped me of everything by the end of last year. So it's like now I'm living like this. Open hands, God, wherever you want me to go, I'm a servant. Whoever you want me to serve, whatever you want me to do, like this is how I've been living my hands. And it has opened up doors that I wouldn't have even knocked on, to be honest. Because now being able to, like, there's just so much that's in alignment with what's happening, not with the job, but like with the vision that God gave me for Let It Be and beyond. Like, I didn't know how I was going to get there, but you know the way that you get there? Through simple steps of obedience. And so that's the biggest takeaway that I want. I know I've shared a lot of personal things, but through simple steps of obedience, God will bless you tremendously. So whatever it is that's in your heart that God is like, hey, deal with that. He knocking on the door like, hey, forgive this person. Hey, go talk to these people. Hey, get out of your comfort zone. Please, I'm begging you. Please surrender to it, because you don't know whose life is going to be impacted by your obedience. You don't know whose life will be made whole because, like somebody could have a need and you be the answer to it. But because it don't look like how you thought it was supposed to look, you don't know people, you don't want to be uncomfortable, you're going to keep yourself small, and then you'll also be taken away from somebody else's blessing. And so that was like the main part that was on my heart of like what God was like dealing me with pride, because pride is the devil. My great prophet J. Cole said that pride is the devil, and it will rob you of your future. It will rob you of your peace. It will rob you of God being able to bless others through you. And so if you take nothing else from my testimony, me sharing this, I want you to know that, like, if there is something that God has placed inside of you, is it going to be easy all the time? No. You might have to get uncomfortable. You might have to lose. You might have to go through seasons of uncertainty and doubt and frustration and confusion and anger, all those things. But literally nothing is wasted. Nothing that you go through is wasted. If God calls you for something, it's going to be a journey. But sometimes we think we see the big picture, but we're not willing to go through those small steps of obedience. Forgive this person. Talk to this person. Don't talk to that person. Walk away from that friendship. Walk away from that relationship. Focus on me in this season. Stop striving to take a break from social media. Stop eating that. Stop drinking. Those small steps of obedience that I had to take during this season, when I was frustrated, when I didn't know how it was going to work out, when I didn't know if my provision was going to be there, where I didn't trust that God wasn't going to change his mind about me, where I didn't want to ask for help, where I was prideful and I was arrogant and all those things. And God had to strip me of those things little by little by little. And even now, I can't tell you what's necessarily what's next. I know there's visions that God's given me, but I know now this probably going to take some work. It's going to take me getting out of my comfort zone. It's going to take me stretching myself more. But I just want to be a living testament to whoever it is that's watching on the other side of this. Like, you just have no idea what God wants to do through you, but it's going to take you to do work too. It's one thing to just have faith, but it's another thing to have action. Faith is believing in things that are unseen, but faith without works is dead. You can believe the thing that's not seen yet, but you can't just believe and then sit still. If God is telling you, hey, there's movement happening. Those when the Israelites were they moved from one place to the next. It wasn't like, God, I just pray that you're gonna free me. He's just like, freedom. No, you gotta work. Sometimes you're gonna have to work for it. You're gonna have to walk to that freedom. You're gonna have to survive on daily bread sometimes. You might complain and then God's like, hey, or you can complain so much and God's like, you know what? You're not ready. You need to sit here for a while until you get that lesson. Because that's exactly what was happening to me last year. In my mind, I thought like, yes, I'm ready, God, for you to do the next thing. Yeah, I want my podcast to be all this, but like all of that was like on my doing. Oh, if I'm successful enough. Oh, if I do this. Oh, if I connect with these people. God was like, none of that. I just need you to be obedient with what I told you to do. And so now, like, it's taken me to be stripped of my pride, my ego. And there's still areas in my heart that I'm sure that like God is like not done ringing out, right? But when I tell you, like, I don't want you to be so amazed at what you see, the flashy, cool things that you see. I want you to know, like what you see is a result. It's the out result of the inside work that I've been doing. Looking in the mirror, being humble, being honest about how I feel. Being honest with God, like, God, I don't want to forgive this person. God, I don't want to. And allowing God to work those things out of your heart. Because you're not ever going to be able to receive the fullness of his blessing until you are able to surrender to who it is that he's called you to be. And we're supposed to be a reflection of him. God is not unforgiving. He's not proud. He's prideful. He's not arrogant. Those are not character traits of God. And so if we call ourselves a vessel, how can we be a vessel when we doing things that are anti-Christ? Honestly, we can't say that we a vessel. God, yes, use me, bless me, all these things, and your lifestyle is anti-Christ. How does that work? And that is what God literally had to. That's what he's dealt with me, and I'm grateful that he didn't give me what I thought that I wanted when I thought I wanted it, because I wouldn't have been able to handle it. I wouldn't have been able to be humble enough, forgiving. Learn how to advocate for myself, speak up for myself, surrender, ask for help, give to somebody. I wouldn't have been able to do that if it wasn't for this hard season that I just had to endure. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be more seasons that are to come. But what you're witnessing, like as you watch me evolve and grow, like know that this is a journey. I still got to depend on God for daily bread. I still have to come to him and ask him before I make a decision to do something. So if you take nothing away from this, like I want you to like take some time to really sit in the mirror, like let's do some self-evaluation. Do you really want to be a disciple of Christ? Do you really want to walk in your purpose? Do you really want to go after those things that God has placed in your heart, the vision that he's given you? Because I can tell you one thing, you ain't going to be able to do it on your own strength. You ain't going to be able to do it full of pride. You ain't going to be able to do it full of hate. You're not going to be able to do it full of unforgiveness. Because if it's something that God has placed inside of you, know that it's a process to get to it. And a lot of us, we quit in the middle of our process because we feel like, God, this ain't working. I'm just going to go and do my own thing. God, this ain't working. I knew you was going to disappoint me. And God, whole time, God is like, no, I just was trying to get that pride out your heart. I was trying to get that arrogance out your heart because you think that your success is dependent upon you. You don't want nobody. And you know what? Something that Bryce said to me, shout out to Bryce. He know who he is. But he called me the other day. He just was like basically telling me, like, if you ever need anything, like, we got you. He was like, what, you want somebody to look? He was like, you don't want to ask for help. You want people to look at you a certain type of way or something? When I tell you that has rung in my ears, because it's like, you're right. Like, I don't want to give a facade like I got it all together. Oh, I don't need help. And it's not even about the facade to social media, but to just in life. Like, I was hiding behind my pride because I didn't want nobody to know, like, hey, you need help. Hey, I'm actually struggling to forgive this person. God, he was like, you want people to look at you a certain kind of way or something? That will always ring in my mind because I don't. Like, I want you to see me as a human. Yes, I'm somebody who still got flaws, who God is still working through. Yes, maybe I've struggled with feeling unworthy. And to be honest, I've accepted, yes, you are unworthy, but you're still called. I've accepted that now. And so, like, my prayer is, like, as I continue to move forward and go in these rooms that I might feel like, how did I get here? Because God put me here. That's how I got here. So when you moving in those areas, being confident, yes, like two things can be true at the same time. Yes, I'm scared, but I'm still obedient. Yes, I'm successful in this area, but I still need help in this area. Yes, I'm going after, I want to go after all those things that God has told me to, but I'm scared and I don't know where to start. Two things can be true at the same time. So start, I don't know, if you're watching this, I want you to know, like, you don't have to have it all figured out before you start. Sometimes it's just a starting. It's a process. With that word, like, process, you just don't know what that process is going to look like, but God is not going to waste anything. Just don't quit in the middle of your process. So if it's hard for you, if you feel like, God, I don't know where my help is going to come from, I don't know if you are going to leave me hanging, I don't know how it's going to work out, just trust him. Trust that he see you, that he know what he placed inside of you. And if it's not good, it's because he's not done. If it's not good, it's because he is not done. He's trying to teach you something. He's trying to show you something. He's trying to reveal those areas in your heart that are not like him, that are anti-Christ. Because you have to, the gag is, you got to trust God with everything, with all of it. It can't be nothing on reserve. It can't be no just in case. It can't be no, I'm a sin a little bit because God know my heart. No, he do know your heart. And he know that you're not fully surrendered to him. And that's why he's not giving you the thing that you want. That's why he's not opening those certain doors. Because he really know your heart. And he know that you're not ready for it. And he's such a good father that he would protect us and not give us those things that would be detrimental. It's like you wouldn't give a toddler that's learning how to walk scissors to put in their hand. You wouldn't do that, right? He's our father. He's our friend. He's all those things. And so when you stop looking at God like this big, like this person that like is just allowing you to be hurt because he's changing, he's trying to be mean or he's trying to manipulate you. That's not who God is. That's not a character trait of him. But if it's something that he's trying to like get out of you, allow that to work. Ask him, God, search my heart, reveal to me what's in my heart that's not like you. What's in my heart that's keeping me from walking fully into who you call me to be? What's in my heart that's causing me not to believe that you are who you say you are? That's causing me not to believe that you'll provide for me. What's in my heart? You got to start there. And sometimes those things that he reveals to you, they might not feel good. It might not look good. And it might not be for other people to know. It might not be for the internet to know. But when he revealed it to you, I just want to advise you, do the work. Don't resist him. Because I literally almost lost everything because I was so prideful. I didn't want nobody to help me. I didn't want people to think that I needed them. How prideful and arrogant is that? I'm not saying you shouldn't be wise and like discern who you need to let into or who you need to ask or get advice from. I'm not saying that. But there's people that God has placed in your life to be a blessing to you. But you have not because you ask not. And even if it's not a financial need, it could be a mental need. It could be resources. We ain't got to be in competition with everybody. What God has for you is for you. And what he has for this, like, no, everybody can just be in their own lane. There's enough for everybody. And don't be so prideful that you don't want to help nobody else because you're scared that they gonna have more or get a shine and all that. All that stuff is antichrist. We are all here. We are blessed to be a blessing to others. So if you take nothing away from this like conversation, this episode, I just want you to first of all search your heart. Ask God to reveal those areas that are not like you, that are not like him. Ask him how you can be a blessing to other people. And ask him to help you as you steward the thing that he's giving you. Family, friends, business, job, kids, whatever it is that he's asking you to steward. Just do it well. When he's telling you, hey, be vulnerable. Hey, forgive. Hey, reconcile. Hey, reach out. Hey, pray for this person. Hey, close that door. Hey, get out of that relationship. Hey, get out of that business deal. Hey, stop going there. Hey, stop drinking that. Those things, when God is telling you to do those things, he ain't being mean, but he knows you. So ask him, reveal it to me, and then obey. But that's it. That's really all. I feel like I was a little bit all over the place, but I hope whoever it is on the other side that needed to hear what I shared, I pray that you are blessed by it. And we are nearing the end of season 4, but there's so much more coming with Let It Be. So stay tuned. If you have not, you can follow me on social media at Fergie. You can subscribe to Let It Be the Podcast on all streaming platforms. We're also available on YouTube where the videos are released if you're listening, at Bree Fergie on YouTube. But stay tuned, and also visit my website, breefergie.com, and sign up for my email list, because there's so many more things that are going to be coming. I want you to be in the know, and I don't want to be solely dependent on like social media for you to know. So visit my website, breefergie.com, sign up for my email list. But that is it. That is all. I'm just grateful that I survived those dark days and be able to come back here and testify to you like how faithful God is, even when I couldn't see it, even when I was doubting. Like, he's still faithful, even though I am unworthy, but he's still good, and he still chooses me, and he still chooses you. Yeah, pride is the devil. So ask him to help you rid of those things so that way you can walk fully into who he's called you to be. But until next time, I will see y'all later. Make sure I got resources. Let It Be the playlist is available on Spotify and Apple. That link is in the description below as well. But stay tuned, because we almost done with season 4, but we ain't done yet. So stay tuned, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.